The Apple story is the very personification of two major foreign exchange stories from where I sit. One, crack on, devalue that yuan, make everything cheaper to rebalance for the consumer. And two, the dollar. The dollar is causing issues, and this is a CEO who says the world is causing him issues like he's never, ever seen it before. It's almost the very personification of every FX risk that there is.
I think that's about right. I mean, and it's actually the Fed that has been communicating that for quite some time in the sense that it has grown a number of worries about the strong dollar. As far as this is concerned, I think it's not going to play the most important part in the policy going forward, but it's definitely one of the things in there.
To put it in perspective, they say since 2014 for Apple, they've lost 15% of their revenue because of the strength of the dollar. So what was $100 in 2014 and is now worth just $85 to them in revenue in this current year. So quite phenomenal moves in the FX. But overall, they are trying to say, actually, we're not subscribing to the doom and the gloom on China. But for now, it's pretty volatile.
I mean, if we just focus, we're going to spend a lot of time on the Fed throughout the show, because obviously it is that two-day meeting, and we're going to see that statement tonight. But if we focus back on China, the yuan, the big question, and I've had this perennial debate, and probably you were here at the start of the year, and we had it with you then. But I love there's an article on the Terminal this morning. The PBOC emerges as Asia's Fed, as the Chinese policy drives FX. So in other words, we've looked at the number of times the PBOC was mentioned, and the number of times the Fed was mentioned, and the BOJ and the ECB. And there is this huge correlation in terms of readership spikes between the PBOC is mentioned and the immediate moves on all of the Asian currencies. The spillover effect, first of all, is the yuan movement done on the downside? That's my first question for 2016, or is there much more to come? But much more materially, the spillover effect, because Asia is critically important beyond China. China's number two for Apple, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So my view is that we haven't seen the full extent of the downside in the yuan. What's been playing out is that, on one hand, you do have China and the PBOC moving towards liberalization of the capital account. On the back of this, you have one, easier monetary policy, and therefore you have capital outflows. And to the extent that you allow the currency to move more freely, the capital outflows should lead to further weakening in the yuan. So that's the broad overview. In terms of implications for the rest of the region, there are definitely implications for the rest of the region, largely because simply when the yuan depreciates, it makes it much more difficult for competitors to export their way out of any potential crisis or any weakness. So from that respect, big competitors in the big Asian arena, like South Korean, for example, will have to follow policies that will favor largely weaker currencies.
Again, all joining in to try and defend themselves. Who do you think will sort of fall over first in the 2016 sort of battle for I suppose, defence against the yuan in that region?
I think South Korea is definitely going to be one of them. It's going to be countries that depend a lot on the Chinese industrial cycle and the global industrial cycle, which is currently weakening. And we are big competitors with China as well. I think South Korea, Japan is another case in point, but however, we've seen a lot of yen weakness over the past 3 years, so I'm not entirely convinced that this yen weakness is going to continue.